Lincoln, Nebraska wasn't the kind of town where people expected drama. It was the kind of place where weekends smelled like fresh-cut grass, kids played until the streetlights blinked on, and neighbors waved whether they liked you or not. But lately, the atmosphere around Lincoln Middle School felt different, tense, watchful, uneasy. Rumors had been drifting from hallway to hallway, playground bench to cafeteria table, always circling back to the same names. Tyler Grant, Mason Hale. Two boys who had somehow turned themselves into the storm everyone else tried to outrun. Tyler was the kind of trouble that didn't scream, it smirked. He walked with his shoulders back like the world belonged to him and any challenge was an annoyance at best. Mason wasn't the leader, he was the echo. Taller, heavier, always half a step behind Tyler, laughing when Tyler laughed, pushing when Tyler pushed. Together, they were louder than rules, stronger than discipline, and far more terrifying than their age suggested. And today, they had picked a target. Noah Reynolds had never been the loud kid, the bold kid, the visible kid. He was the type who blended in with shadows on purpose. Small, quiet, thoughtful. He liked sketching more than sports and thinking more than talking. He wasn't weak, but in a world ruled by loudness, quiet boys became prey. The schoolyard felt wrong that afternoon. Too many kids standing still. Too many watching from a safe distance with the helpless fascination of people staring at a slow-building disaster. Backpacks sat abandoned on benches. Soccer balls rolled to lazy stops. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Tyler shoved Noah hard. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't even yelling. He just watched Noah stumble with a cold curiosity, like this was an experiment he had done before and already knew the outcome. Noah's knees hit the pavement. His backpack strap snapped. Papers exploded across the asphalt like startled birds. Mason laughed first. Kids around them flinched, then did nothing. Because what were they supposed to do? Speak up and become the next target. Call a teacher and be branded a snitch. Pretend nothing was happening and live with that weight. So they watched. Noah tried to gather his papers, hands shaking. Mason kicked one across the concrete. It slid and fluttered to a stop near the bike racks. Tyler crouched beside Noah, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. "You listening now?" he asked. Noah nodded. Because when your breath shakes and your throat burns and fear crawls down your spine, nodding is all you can do. "Good," Tyler said, grabbing Noah's hoodie and yanking him forward. "Then stop looking at me like I'm the bad guy." A ripple of discomfort moved through the watching crowd. Tyler always did this, twisted things, made it sound like he was the victim, that Noah had wronged him simply by existing incorrectly. A sound broke the tense silence. Not a shout. Not a scream. Just the slow roll of tires against pavement. A police cruiser. It was nearly silent as it rolled along the street bordering the schoolyard, sunlight glinting off the windshield. Conversations faltered. Postures stiffened. Even kids far from the scene straightened because instinct simply did that when a cop car appeared. In the front seat sat Officer Mark Daniels. Calm, serious, known in town. Not one of those officers who barked orders or looked for trouble. He was the kind who showed up at community fairs, shook hands with parents, and remembered kids' names. In the back seat, that was what truly changed the air. A large German shepherd sat perfectly still, posture dignified, eyes alert. The K9 everyone knew, the legend kids whispered about like a hero from a movie. Kane. He wasn't just a police dog. He was the dog who had taken down a burglary suspect who threatened a child. The dog who had found a missing toddler in a cornfield at 2 a.m., the dog who never seemed afraid of anything. He wasn't just muscle, he was mind, and more importantly, he was heart. The cruiser slowed. Maybe Officer Daniels saw the strange stillness in the yard. Maybe Kane sensed it first. Maybe fate was simply tired of staying quiet. Whatever the reason, the moment police presence entered the scene, the story changed. Tyler froze, fingers still clutching Noah's hoodie. Kids hoped, just for a second, that he would stop. Instead, Tyler smirked. Of course he did. He shoved Noah backward like a final act, like a statement. See, even with cops around, I still win. Noah fell again. Officer Daniels' jaw tightened. He pulled the car to the curb. And in the back seat, Kane did something rare, something Officer Daniels immediately noticed. He stood. Not abruptly, not aggressively, slowly, purposefully, like a soldier rising to attention. His gaze locked sharp, unwavering on Tyler and Mason. Not scanning. Not curious. Focused. Locked. Tyler felt it before he consciously understood it. A chill that crawled into his bones and wrapped icy fingers around his confidence. Mason swallowed. Kids whispered. Whoa, Kane's looking at them. He never reacts like that. Something's wrong. Officer Daniels didn't open the car immediately. He watched his partner. He trusted Kane more than anyone realized. Kane, he murmured under his breath, what do you see? Kane didn't even flick an ear toward Daniels' voice. He didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't breathe wrong. He simply stared. Most dogs bark at confrontation. Most dogs lunge when challenged. Most dogs react. Kane didn't. He observed. He judged. And somehow that felt worse. Officer Daniels finally stepped out of the cruiser. He didn't shout. He didn't reach for his radio. He simply walked forward with a steady, grounded presence. Everything all right here? He asked, voice calm but firm enough to slice through pretenses. Kids stepped back. Noah froze. Mason inhaled sharply. Tyler rolled his shoulders like he wasn't bothered. We're just messing around, Tyler said, forcing a shrug he didn't feel. Just playing. Nothing in his tone sounded playful. Officer Daniels' eyes dropped to Noah's scraped hands, the papers scattered, the broken backpack strap. Then he glanced back at Kane. Still locked in. Still watching. Still reading the situation with unnerving clarity. Officer Daniels' heartbeat slowed with focus. He opened the back car door. It was subtle, controlled, but to the kids watching it was electric. Kane stepped out. Not like a beast unleashed, but like royalty descending. Powerful, controlled, poised, every muscle disciplined under sleek fur. The world shrank around him. Kids stopped breathing. The wind stilled. The moment thickened. Kane didn't bare teeth. Didn't growl. Didn't rush. He walked. Slow, steady, silent. And then he stopped. Right in front of Tyler and Mason. The two boys went still. They weren't scared of teachers. They weren't scared of principals. They weren't scared of their classmates. But this wasn't something you could laugh at. This wasn't someone you could shove. This was something ancient. Instinct meeting conscience. Force meeting arrogance. Justice meeting cruelty. Kane sat. Not aggressively. Purposefully. His gaze lifted upward until he locked eyes with Tyler. And he held it. Held it for 1 second. 2. 3. Long enough for the illusion of invincibility to crack. Because Kane didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. As if he understood everything. As if he saw through every excuse. Every lie. Every mask. Mason looked away first. Tyler tried not to. But his breath stuttered. Because for the first time, for the very first time, Tyler felt small. The playground didn't move. Kids didn't whisper. Officer Daniels didn't speak. The world was silent. Just a boy. A mistake. 1,000 wrong choices. And a police dog who seemed to see straight through them. And then, Kane's ears twitched. His body went still in a different way. Alert. Locking. Shifting focus again. Something else had caught his attention. Something no one else had noticed yet. Something. He slowly turned his head away from Tyler. His attention moved past the bullies. Towards something behind them. Towards something no one was prepared to face. And in that instant, every single kid in that schoolyard realized. This wasn't just about bullying anymore. Kane's head tilted slightly, ears sharp, eyes narrowing, not at Tyler or Mason, but at something subtle behind them. Most adults would have missed it. A faint movement, a shadow stretching unnaturally between the swings and the basketball hoop. A small figure trying to stay unnoticed, but trembling so violently that even a stranger's eyes could pick it up. Noah froze mid-step, heart pounding. He followed Kane's gaze, unsure if the dog had spotted danger or was simply signaling something worse. Tyler and Mason didn't notice, too wrapped up in their own sense of control. But Kane did. He always did. Officer Daniels stepped closer, voice steady yet low, meant more for Kane than anyone else. "What is it, boy? What are you seeing?" Kane didn't bark, didn't growl. He simply moved with precision, each step silent, measured. His nose twitched. His tail flicked once, a small, almost imperceptible signal. But to Daniels, it was a language they shared. A language of danger, of instinct, of life and death decisions made in milliseconds. "Back up, kid," Daniels said to Noah, gesturing subtly. "Stay behind me." Noah obeyed instantly, ducking behind the officer. His palms were sweaty, knees weak, thoughts racing. Why is Kane so focused? Why does this feel like something I should be afraid of? Tyler smirked nervously, attempting to reassert his bravado. "What's wrong with your dog, officer? He looking at us like we're criminals or something." Kane's eyes didn't waver from the shadowed corner of the playground. Tyler laughed, trying to sound confident, but it cracked halfway through. Mason's leg bounced. Their energy shifted. What had been playful cruelty was now tinged with genuine fear. Daniel said nothing. He didn't need to. Kane was already doing the talking. Then it happened. A rustle, a sharp movement from the shadows. A small boy, maybe 10 years old, stepped forward, tripping over a loose chain on the swing set. His backpack hung crooked, straps twisted. Tears streaked down his face, mixing with dirt from the playground. He was terrified, but he was moving toward the bullies. Tyler and Mason didn't notice immediately. They were too busy posturing, but Kane did. Kane's posture shifted, from still, calm observation to alert readiness. His body coiled with energy like a spring. He didn't need commands. He understood instinctively this boy could be hurt, and he would intervene. Daniels finally spoke. "Stay back, Tyler. Mason, don't move." Tyler snorted. "We're fine. This doesn't involve us." But the small boy kept walking forward, shuffling, hands raised in a pleading gesture, voice shaking. "Please stop hurting him." The playground went silent. Every child watching felt the weight of the moment like it was pressing against their chests. Noah's eyes widened. That boy, that kid was brave, or reckless, or maybe both. Tyler's smirk faltered. Mason's hand clenched. Their laughs had evaporated, replaced by a cold, creeping awareness. They weren't in control anymore. Kane moved next. A single step forward, his nails clicking lightly on asphalt, shifting from silent observer to the physical embodiment of authority. Tyler flinched. Mason swallowed hard, trying to maintain a facade. "You're not supposed to be here," Tyler spat, voice trembling. The small boy's eyes were wide, unwavering. I can't let you hurt anyone else." Then Kane's low, warning growl echoed, not loud but deep, reverberating through the playground. It wasn't a threat for Noah. It wasn't a threat for the other children. It was a warning for them. Tyler and Mason froze. Their faces betrayed it. They knew, without a doubt, that Kane would act if necessary. Tyler tried to step forward, half to intimidate, half to test Kane. Kane didn't bark. He didn't lunge. He simply stared, unwavering, and something about that gaze made Tyler hesitate. Mason's breathing quickened, panic rising under the surface. Officer Daniels slowly reached for the radio, ready to call backup, but then he paused. Kane didn't move violently. He didn't need help. He had the situation under control, reading the boy's every micro-expression. Noah whispered from behind Daniels, voice barely audible. He's not going to hurt them, right? Daniels shook his head slightly, not if they listen. The tension hung like a living thing, thick and suffocating. The small boy, still trembling, edged a step closer to Kane. Kane sniffed the air, then lowered his head slightly, allowing the boy a subtle, almost protective gesture. It was a reassurance. "I've got you." Then something snapped in Tyler. Not loud, not explosive, just a subtle tremor, a flicker of fear he couldn't hide. This is ridiculous," he muttered. Mason's hand reached for Tyler's arm, a gesture of solidarity, but Tyler shook it off, stepping closer to Kane. "Step aside," he said, voice shaking. Kane didn't flinch, didn't move an inch. His eyes narrowed slightly. The air itself seemed to contract. Every child in the yard held their breath. Then Kane did something unexpected. He leaned forward just a fraction, not aggressively, but enough to assert dominance. He lowered his head, maintaining eye contact with Tyler. It was subtle but terrifying. It said everything words could not. "I see you. I see what you've done. I see what you're capable of, and I am ready to stop it." Tyler froze. Mason's knees shook. Both boys had always relied on fear, their own, and the fear they inspired. But now, the power dynamic had shifted entirely. The small boy spoke again, voice stronger this time, emboldened by Kane's presence. "If you don't stop, someone's going to get hurt, and it won't be me." The statement hung in the air. The weight of truth pressed down on everyone. Even Tyler and Mason could feel it, the crushing inevitability that their actions had consequences. Kane's tail flicked once, a subtle motion, unnoticed by most but signaling approval to Daniels and the small boy. Kane wasn't just a protector, he was a judge, and he had made his decision. Tyler swallowed hard, trying to salvage his authority, but it came out as a weak, stammering whisper. "We were just joking." The tension snapped. Kane's growl deepened, resonating from the very core of his being. Not loud, not violent, but final, absolute. The small boy's eyes met Noah's. Noah felt something stir inside, a mix of relief, awe, and fear. Kane was more than a dog. He was a force of nature, a guardian who could see the truth in a glance, and he was ready to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Tyler and Mason realized they had a choice: comply or face the consequences. But before they could make a move, Kane's ears twitched again, his attention shifting slightly. Something else had arrived on the playground, subtle yet significant, moving through the edges of the field. Officer Daniels noticed it too. His fingers hovered near his radio. His eyes scanned the area. Something or someone was approaching. Kane's gaze followed it. The small boy and Noah watched as the dog's posture became rigid again, muscles coiled, body tense. Whatever it was, Kane had detected it. And whatever it wasn't friendly. The playground, once chaotic with laughter and fear, fell completely silent. Everyone realized in that suspended moment that this was far from over. And Kane was ready. The air shifted again. Kane's ears twitched, nostrils flaring as he detected a presence approaching from the tree line beyond the basketball court. It was subtle at first, just a slight rustle of leaves, almost lost in the hum of distant traffic. But the dog's body tightened, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. Every instinct screamed that this was no ordinary kid wandering into the playground. Tyler and Mason, still pale from Kane's unblinking stare, didn't notice at first. They were frozen by fear, trapped in the weight of accountability for the first time in their lives. But as the rustle grew louder, Mason glanced toward the tree line, squinting. What is that?" he whispered, voice shaking. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Stay put," he ordered, keeping one hand near his radio, the other resting lightly on Kane's shoulder. "Do not move until I tell you." Noah crouched lower, heart pounding in his chest. The small boy from earlier clutched his backpack straps tightly, trembling. He wanted to hide, to disappear, but something about Kane's calm, unwavering presence made him stay. Kane had become more than a dog. He was a shield, a silent protector. And if Kane wasn't afraid, maybe there was hope. The rustling intensified. A figure emerged from the shadowed edge of the playground. It was a teenager, lanky, dressed in dark clothes that blended with the trees. His face was partially obscured by a hood. He moved deliberately, purposefully, hands clenched at his sides. Every movement radiated tension, the kind that made a small kid stop breathing instinctively. Tyler stepped back instinctively, his earlier bravado crumbling completely. Mason's arm shot out to steady him, but Tyler brushed it off. We didn't do anything," he stammered, though his voice lacked conviction. Kane growled low in his throat, a warning, not an attack. The sound vibrated through the playground, making every child shiver involuntarily. The approaching teen froze, eyes locking on Kane. A smirk flickered, quickly replaced by a scowl. Daniel stepped forward, voice firm, commanding, "Who are you? Step into the light and show yourself." The teen didn't move. His gaze flicked from Kane to Tyler and Mason, then back. "I've been watching," he said finally, voice low and steady. "You think you're untouchable, don't you? All this terror you've spread." Noah felt a chill crawl down his spine. Something about the teen's presence screamed danger. He looked at Kane, who remained between the teen and the other kids, posture tense but composed. Kane wasn't just protective. He was ready to confront this unknown threat. The teen took a step forward, and suddenly Tyler's face paled even more. Recognition? Fear? Noah couldn't tell. Mason swallowed hard, voice quivering. You shouldn't be here," Mason said. The teen's eyes narrowed. "I'm here because you left a trail, you hurt kids, you think it's fun, but it's not anymore." Kane growled again, deeper this time, resonating through the asphalt and echoing in the nearby halls. He was warning the teen, back off or face consequences. The dog's eyes never left him, unwavering, calculating. Officer Daniel's grip on the leash tightened slightly. "Kane, hold, stay." The words were calm but firm. Kane stiffened, ready to act instantly. Tyler's jaw tightened. He realized that the playground was no longer a place where he controlled the narrative. Kane, the unseen forces behind him, and now this shadowy teen were rewriting the rules. The teen smirked again, a dangerous tilt to his mouth. "I know what you did last week, and the week before. Everyone's scared of you, but not me, not anymore." Tyler swallowed hard. You don't know me," he stammered, trying to mask the rising panic. "Oh, I know you," the teen said, stepping closer. "I know what you're capable of, and I'm not letting it continue." The tension was suffocating. Children froze, holding their breath. Parents watching from the edges of the school lot shifted uneasily. Kane's ears twitched, eyes narrowing further. This wasn't just a playground dispute anymore. Something deeper, more dangerous, was unfolding. Then, without warning, the teen lunged, not at the children, not at the bullies, but at Mason's backpack, yanking something from it. A small, metallic object clinked against concrete. Kane barked sharply, sprinting forward, stopping just short of the teen with perfect precision. The dog's growl intensified, his teeth bared just slightly, not enough to attack, just enough to warn. Tyler's face went white. "Stop! Give that back!" he yelled, panic overtaking his usual arrogance. The teen held the object high. Daniel's eyes widened as he recognized it, a small, serrated pocket knife. Mason and Tyler's earlier bravado vanished completely. The consequences of their reckless behavior had escalated into real danger. Kane's growl deepened, warning clear. The dog was a living barrier between the children and potential violence. Noah's heart pounded in his chest as he realized how close they had come to disaster. Cain wasn't just a dog. He was a force capable of controlling life-or-death situations. "Put it down," Daniels commanded, voice firm, authoritative. "Now." The teen's eyes flicked to Cain, then back to Daniels. A tense standoff ensued. Every child, every adult, every pair of eyes was fixed on the scene. Time slowed. The air itself seemed to thicken. Finally, the teen hesitated. Cain didn't move, but the warning in his eyes was absolute. Any sudden action could trigger the dog's trained response. Daniel stepped closer, hand extended calmly, voice steady. "It doesn't have to end badly. Hand it over." The teen's fingers tightened on the knife. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, he lowered it. Cain's posture relaxed slightly, ears flicking back as the immediate threat dissipated. The children exhaled collectively, the tension in the playground breaking like a storm passing. Tyler and Mason stared, speechless. The illusion of control they had clung to for so long had shattered completely. They were not the ones in power. They never had been. Cain, the dog, and this mysterious teen had reminded them in the most visceral way that actions have consequences. Noah approached the small boy, who had been watching from the shadows, trembling but steadfast. "Thank you," Noah whispered, voice barely audible. The teen glanced at Noah, then at Cain, then back to Tyler and Mason. "Maybe now you'll understand," he said quietly. And without another word, he turned and disappeared into the trees, leaving the playground eerily silent. Cain remained by Daniel's side, eyes scanning, alert. The lesson had been taught, but the aftermath was only beginning. The children whispered among themselves, realizing how close they had come to disaster, how fragile the illusion of safety really was. Tyler and Mason were still frozen, struggling to comprehend the chain of events that had just unfolded. Cain's gaze lingered on them, unwavering, and it was clear, this wasn't over, not yet. Daniels finally exhaled, relaxing his grip slightly. "Let's get everyone inside," he said, voice calm but commanding. "We need to report this and make sure nothing else happens." Noah followed Cain, feeling a mix of relief and awe. The dog had saved them, but there was something else, something unspoken. Cain had sensed danger before anyone else. He had read the bullies' intent and the approaching teen's resolve. And in that moment, Noah realized just how extraordinary Cain truly was. As the children filed back into the school building, the sun dipped slightly, casting long shadows across the playground. But even as the normal rhythms of the day resumed, a lingering tension remained. Everyone knew they had witnessed something rare, a silent guardian enforcing justice without a word, a reminder that courage can come in many forms. And somewhere in the distance, hidden in the tree line, the teen watched, waiting, knowing that the battle between right and wrong was far from over. Noah shivered, glancing back at Cain, who simply sat, eyes unwavering, alert, ready. Because in that moment, one truth was undeniable. Cain had seen it all, and he wasn't finished yet. The classroom smelled faintly of disinfectant and pencils, a false sense of safety compared to the tension that still clung to the playground. Yet, inside, the quiet was deceptive. Kids whispered in low voices, glancing nervously toward the door where Officer Daniels stood with Cain at his side. Even with the threat seemingly gone, everyone felt it. The air had changed, heavier now, filled with the weight of things unspoken. Noah sat at his desk, shaking slightly, his sketchpad forgotten on the floor. He traced idle patterns with a pencil, mind replaying every second from the playground, the locked eyes, the growl, the teen, the knife. He tried to make sense of it, but the images looped in his mind like a warning he didn't fully understand. "Everyone calm down," Daniels said, voice calm but commanding. He scanned the room slowly, making eye contact with the bullies first. Tyler and Mason slumped in their seats, pale, trying to look nonchalant but failing spectacularly. Cain sat perfectly still at the front, ears alert, eyes darting between the two boys like a predator measuring its prey. but a predator guided by discipline and justice, not malice. Let's be honest, Daniels continued. This isn't about playground games anymore. What happened today, it's serious, and it's not something we can ignore. Mason shifted uncomfortably. We didn't really mean. No, Daniels interrupted. You did, that's the problem. You meant exactly what you did. And now someone could have been seriously hurt. A knife. That changes everything. Tyler's jaw tightened. His usual defiance trembled under Daniels' gaze. Kane's eyes remained locked on him, unwavering. Noah watched silently, heart pounding. The dog wasn't threatening. He was teaching. A living, breathing lesson Tyler would never forget. Then came the knock at the door. Not polite, not tentative, sharp, insistent. Daniel's hand went instinctively to his belt, eyes narrowing. Kane stiffened, ears twitching. A custodian poked his head in. Officer Daniels, you might want to see this." Daniels motioned for the class to stay put. He and Kane followed the custodian into the hallway. There, near the side entrance to the playground, lay a small pile of folded papers. At first glance, they seemed like nothing more than discarded homework, but Kane sniffed immediately, low growl rumbling in his chest. Daniels picked up the top sheet. His face tightened as he read. It was a list. Names, kids from the school, dates, descriptions of incidents, intimidation, threats, small acts of cruelty escalating over months, and at the bottom, the words, "Next time it won't be just a prank." Noah's stomach dropped. Kane's hackles rose slightly, but he remained poised, ready. This wasn't just playground bullying. It was planned, systematic, and the handwriting was unmistakable. Tyler and Mason. The handwriting matched reports from previous minor incidents. Daniels glanced down the hallway. "This is worse than I thought," he muttered. His eyes flicked to Kane, who gave a subtle nod, or maybe a gesture of acknowledgement. Somehow, Daniels knew Kane understood exactly what to do next. The two boys were called to the principal's office. The room was tense, quiet except for the low hum of the air conditioner. Kane remained in the hallway, watching, waiting. Daniels knew he could handle the situation inside, but Kane's presence outside reassured him. The boys couldn't slip away or try anything reckless. Inside the office, Tyler leaned back in the chair, trying to look casual. Mason fidgeted. The principal, Mrs. Carlyle, crossed her arms, staring at the two like they were transparent. The pile of papers sat on the desk, evidence undeniable. "Do you recognize this?" she asked, voice cold. Tyler swallowed. Maybe I don't." "You don't what?" she interrupted sharply. "You don't deny it. You don't care, because it's right here. Every name, every date, every act. You've been terrorizing students for months, and now someone found your list. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mason shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't supposed to go this far." "Not supposed to." Mrs. Carlyle's voice hit the ceiling of reason and disbelief. "You wrote threats. You carried a knife. You endangered a student's life. This isn't just messing around anymore. This is criminal behavior." Outside, Kane's ears twitched at every raised voice, eyes narrowing. He knew they weren't finished, not yet. There was one final lesson these boys needed to learn, and he would make sure it happened. Daniels returned to the hallway briefly, kneeling next to Kane. "They're starting to understand," he murmured, "but I don't think it's enough yet." Kane barked once, sharp and commanding, as if in agreement. Then he moved silently down the hallway, positioning himself just outside the office door. Every step measured, every muscle coiled. The presence of a disciplined police dog outside a room full of guilty boys was almost unbearable. Tyler shifted in his chair, subconsciously sensing the silent judgment emanating through the walls. Minutes dragged. Then a sudden crash echoed from inside the office. Not loud, enough to make hearts race, enough to make the students waiting outside glance nervously at the door. A scream followed, a sharp, panicked shout. Kane's ears perked, his body moving in an instant, alert, every sense firing. Daniels bolted toward the office door, keys ready, adrenaline surging. Kane followed, silent as shadow, faster than any human could manage. The door swung open. Tyler and Mason stumbled out, Mason tripping over his own feet, Tyler's face pale, wide-eyed. But it wasn't a scream of violence that had come from inside. It was Tyler's own voice, cracking with fear. I can't," Tyler whispered, unable to continue. Mason shook his head. He did something, he saw through me. Daniels froze. Kane stepped forward, barring just enough teeth to assert dominance, then paused. The boys shrank back instinctively. Kane's eyes locked on them, unwavering, every muscle taut with controlled power. From inside, the small boy, who had earlier intervened on the playground, emerged, holding Tyler's confiscated knife in one hand and a stack of his own collected evidence in the other. His eyes were steady, unwavering. "You're not untouchable," the boy said quietly, almost a whisper. "Not anymore." Kane sat perfectly still, tail low but eyes bright. Noah, standing a few feet behind Daniels, watched the scene unfold in awe. Kane hadn't touched the Bullies. He didn't need to. His presence alone, his power, his discipline, his judgment, had broken them completely. Tyler and Mason were reduced to trembling, pale versions of themselves. The illusion of control that had carried them through months of terror evaporated instantly. Kane's silent authority had done what words, rules, and threats could not. But the story wasn't over. Even as Tyler and Mason were led away to face the consequences, Noah sensed the lingering weight of danger. Kane had detected something earlier, something subtle, nearly invisible, and it hadn't gone away. Noah looked up at the dog, whose ears flicked toward the tree line once again, alert, eyes sharp. Kane wasn't finished. He had sensed the patterns, the threat, and he was still watching, still ready, still guarding. Daniels followed Kane's gaze. "We're not done yet, boy," he said softly. Kane's tail flicked, acknowledging the warning, the vigilance. The playground outside was silent now, emptying slowly as children returned home. But inside, a lesson had been carved into the minds of every witness. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sits, waits, and stares you down. And sometimes it comes in the form of a dog whose eyes see more than just the surface. As Noah packed his bag, glancing at Kane, he realized something he hadn't before. The dog had not just saved him. Kane had shown everyone what accountability looks like. And no one, not Tyler, not Mason, not any other child, would forget that day. But even as he walked toward the door, Kane stiffened again, ears twitching. Somewhere out there, a shadow remained. The unseen threat that had made Kane alert in the first place had not disappeared. And in that moment, Noah understood. The story was far from over. Because Kane had sensed it all, and whatever was coming next was going to test everyone in ways they could never imagine. The school was quieter than usual that evening, the kind of quiet that presses against the chest like a warning. Most kids had been sent home, still whispering about what had happened on the playground. Some whispered about Kane. Others whispered about the mysterious teen who had appeared from the tree line. But one thing was clear to everyone who had witnessed the chaos: nothing would ever feel ordinary again. Officer Daniels remained behind with Kane, checking the office one last time. The confiscated knife and the pile of incriminating papers had been secured in a locked drawer. Kane, ever alert, prowled the hallways with his ears twitching, nostrils flaring, tail low but alert. His instincts were still screaming. Something was off. Someone or something hadn't shown itself yet. Tyler and Mason had been taken to the principal's office for disciplinary measures, but the story was far from finished. Their parents had been called. Tyler's father arrived first, a tall man with a reputation for intimidation, eyes narrowing at Daniels and Kane. Mason's mother came shortly after, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. "You're exaggerating," Tyler's father barked as soon as Daniels explained the knife, the threats, and Kane's intervention. "My son didn't do anything serious. You're blowing this out of proportion." Daniels remained calm. "Sir, your son's actions endangered children. The evidence is clear." And the dog Kane reacted because he detected the seriousness of the situation. This isn't about exaggeration. It's about safety and accountability. Tyler's father laughed dismissively. "A dog? Are you telling me my son is afraid of a dog?" Kane's ears flicked. Eyes locked on Tyler's father for a brief moment, calculating, intelligent, almost human in judgment. Daniels could see the subtle tension in Tyler's father's shoulders as Kane's gaze held steady. The man cleared his throat, suddenly aware that Kane wasn't just a dog. He was a presence, an authority that needed no human validation. Meanwhile, Noah was still in the office, sitting with his sketchpad on his lap. He had drawn the scene in painstaking detail, Kane in the center, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the Bullies. His pencil hovered as he added shading, capturing the intensity he had felt earlier. He didn't realize it yet, but these sketches would become evidence later, the way he saw truth. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed from the hallway. Daniel's hand went to his belt instinctively. Kane stiffened, ears twitching, muscles tightening. The sound came again, a rapid staccato tap, almost like footsteps running over concrete, careful but urgent. Before anyone could react, a new figure appeared. It was the mysterious teen from the tree line earlier, hood pulled low over his face, eyes scanning the room. Kane growled low, a deep rumble that resonated through the walls. Daniels raised his hand slowly, voice calm but firm. "Wait, hold on," he said. "You're not a threat, right? What's going on?" The teen didn't speak immediately. He stepped forward, revealing a small recorder in his hand. "I've been recording," he said quietly. "Everything Tyler and Mason did, all the bullying, all the threats. This is bigger than you realize." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "How did you?" "I've been following the pattern," the teen interrupted, voice steady. "Someone had to gather proof before someone got hurt. Kane saved him today, but the evidence matters. Otherwise, it could all be dismissed." Noah's heart pounded. He looked at the teen, realizing this boy had courage far beyond his years. Kane's ears flicked as if acknowledging approval. The dog understood instinctively. The teen was an ally, someone who had done what adults had failed to do. Tyler's father stepped forward, face red with fury. "Who are you, and why are you accusing my son?" The teen's eyes narrowed. "I'm not accusing, I'm showing the truth. You want to protect him, fine, but I have the proof that can't be ignored. If the authorities don't act, someone could get seriously hurt." Mason's mother gasped, clutching her purse tighter. "Oh my God," she whispered, looking at the papers the teen held. Tyler swallowed hard. His bravado had evaporated completely. This isn't real," he stammered. Kane's growl deepened, and he shifted slightly closer to Daniels. Every muscle in his body was coiled, ready to act if anyone moved incorrectly. Tyler's father glanced at the dog, then back at his son, realizing, perhaps for the first time, that Kane wasn't a simple animal. He was a living judge, and he had already rendered a verdict in silence. The teen held up the recorder. "Listen. Listen to what they've done, what they've said, and how far it could have gone." Daniels hit play. The recording filled the room, Tyler and Mason laughing as they threatened younger students, sneering at their fear, talking about the fun of making people scared. The sound of their voices, raw and unfiltered, made the hairs on the back of Noah's neck stand on end. Every child in the room winced. Even Tyler and Mason couldn't hide the shame, though fear still lingered over it. Kane stepped forward suddenly, just enough to place himself between the boys and the younger children. His body was a living barrier. His eyes locked onto Tyler, then Mason. The growl rumbled in his chest again, a low, restrained warning. Any sudden movement, any attempt to escape or threaten, would be met with immediate action. Tyler looked down at the floor, shaking. Mason fumbled, trying to reach into his pocket, then stopped abruptly, realizing Kane's gaze tracked him perfectly. The illusion of control they had always relied on was gone. For the first time, they were powerless. Daniels spoke calmly but firmly. This isn't about punishment for its own sake. This is about accountability. You will face consequences for your actions. This recording, the papers, everything Kane has revealed, it's proof you can't hide from. You're going to learn what it means to face the impact of your behavior. Tyler's father's face darkened. This is ridiculous, you can't. Step back, Daniels warned. His hand hovered near his radio. Kane's body coiled beside him, tense, ready. Even the smallest gesture of defiance could trigger a chain of events the father hadn't anticipated. Suddenly, Mason broke. Tears streamed down his face as he collapsed into a chair, whispering apologies, words tumbling out in panic. Tyler followed slowly, his usual arrogance shattered, voice barely audible. I didn't think. Kane tilted his head slightly, eyes observing, still calculating, still in control. The dog had achieved something remarkable: fear without violence, accountability without threat. The bullies were no longer in power. But Daniels knew the real lesson wasn't complete. Kane had sensed something earlier, a lingering threat that hadn't yet revealed itself. A shadow, subtle and patient, that watched from the edges, waiting for the moment to act. Noah's gaze followed Kane as the dog sniffed the air, ears twitching. Something was coming. Something that even the teens, even Daniels, hadn't anticipated. Kane's body stiffened, muscles tightening in silent preparation. And then the sound came. A faint, rapid tapping from outside the office window, the kind that made your stomach drop. Someone or something was moving fast, deliberate, and it wasn't here to negotiate. Kane barked sharply once, a warning shot through the office. Daniel's hand moved to his belt. Tyler and Mason froze, eyes wide. The small teen recording glanced nervously at the window. Noah's stomach twisted. The office door rattled slightly, as if the building itself sensed the approaching threat. Kane's growl deepened, low and deadly. The room held its breath. Everyone knew instinctively the danger was near. Daniels whispered under his breath, eyes locked on Kane. "You saw it right." Kane's eyes locked onto the window. His stance didn't change, but his growl intensified, warning, commanding, asserting. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to wait. And in that heartbeat, the room realized with terror and awe, the confrontation was far from over. The tapping at the window grew louder, sharper, more deliberate. It wasn't casual, it wasn't random. Kane's growl deepened, reverberating through the office, a low, ominous warning that made the hairs on everyone's neck stand on end. The air felt charged, as though the building itself was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. Daniel's hand hovered near his belt. He glanced at Kane, whose eyes were locked on the window with unshakable focus. The dog wasn't just alert. He was reading the intruder's intent, anticipating movements, calculating risk. Kane didn't need commands. He had already processed every micro-movement in the shadow outside. Noah crouched closer to the wall, heart hammering. He could feel Kane's tension like electricity through the floorboards. Tyler and Mason were frozen in chairs, pale and trembling. Even the teen with the recorder, normally confident and fearless, had gone still, aware that whatever was outside the office was more dangerous than anything they had faced today. Then a hand slammed against the glass. A mask of black fabric covered the intruder's face. Only a pair of sharp, dark eyes was visible. Kane's hackles rose further. The growl became a vibration that filled the entire office. Daniels stepped forward, voice calm but authoritative. "Step away from the window." The figure didn't move. Instead, a metallic glint flashed, a knife, small but sharp, held in a hand that trembled with purpose. The intruder's eyes scanned the room, landing on Tyler and Mason, then Noah, then Daniels, then finally Kane. The dog's eyes narrowed in response. Time slowed. Every child in the office felt it. Every adult felt it. This was a moment that balanced on a knife's edge, literally. One wrong move, one lapse in judgment, and chaos would erupt. Kane shifted slightly forward, ears flat, body coiled like a spring ready to strike. Daniels whispered almost to himself, stay calm, we can control this." The intruder spoke, voice low, masked but determined. "I told you the consequences weren't over. I warned them." Daniel's brow furrowed. What are you talking about?" The figure pointed at Tyler and Mason. "You hurt too many. You didn't think anyone was paying attention, but someone was, and now I'm here to make sure it stops." Tyler's face went white. Mason's eyes darted around the room. The weight of everything, years of intimidation, fear, lies, crashed down at once. They realized that the illusion of control they had relied on for so long had been shattered completely. Kane's growl rose another octave, more urgent, more commanding. The dog moved slightly to the side, positioning himself between the intruder and the rest of the room. It was clear. Kane was ready to act if the intruder advanced. The masked figure took a slow, deliberate step forward. The knife glinted in the fluorescent light. Daniel's hand rested on his holster, but his focus was entirely on Kane. He trusted the dog's instincts more than his own judgment. Kane was the line between order and chaos in that moment. Suddenly, a loud crash from the window. The intruder had kicked a chair, sending it toppling across the office. The noise startled everyone. Noah jumped. The teen with the recorder gripped the papers tightly. Tyler shrank into his chair, and Mason's knees shook uncontrollably. Kane barked sharply, a warning bark that made the intruder pause mid-step. The dog's teeth glinted under the fluorescent lights, but he didn't attack. He didn't need to. The threat in his eyes alone was enough to force hesitation. Daniels took a step forward, voice calm but firm. "Drop the knife, now." The intruder hesitated, eyes flicking to Kane. Something in the dog's gaze stopped him, an understanding that Kane would act with precision if provoked. Slowly, the intruder lowered the knife, just enough for Daniels to see, but not completely safe yet. Then Kane did something unexpected. He moved closer, stepping into the intruder's space without aggression, maintaining eye contact. It wasn't threatening. It was dominance, control, authority. Kane's silent command filled the room. "Leave now or consequences will follow." The intruder swallowed hard. Their eyes flicked between Daniels, the knife, and Kane. Every instinct screamed retreat, but pride and anger held them in place. Tyler and Mason exchanged glances. Fear had completely replaced bravado. They saw the dog, and in that gaze, they recognized what they had never admitted. Their actions had consequences far beyond their control. Kane was more than a dog. He was justice incarnate. The intruder's hand twitched slightly toward the knife again. Kane's growl deepened, low and menacing, vibrating through the floor. Daniel stepped closer, voice firm. "This is your last chance. Step away." The intruder hesitated, then bolted, sliding past the doorway into the hallway. Kane moved instantly, sprinting with precise speed, blocking the intruder's path without making contact, forcing them to stop. The dog's growl continued, warning sharp, eyes locked. Daniels followed quickly. "Kane, hold him there." The intruder froze, realizing escape was impossible with Kane strategically positioned. Sweat dripped down their forehead. Panic filled their eyes. They hadn't expected a dog to anticipate every move, to be so calm yet so utterly unyielding. Tyler whispered almost to himself, voice trembling. That dog, he's not normal." Noah's eyes were wide. He had never seen anything like this. Kane wasn't just a protector. He was a sentinel, a judge, a force that ensured no one could escape justice. The intruder's resolve faltered. Daniel slowly approached, hand extended, voice steady. "Drop it. It doesn't have to go further. You're caught. No one needs to get hurt." Finally, the intruder released the knife. Kane's eyes never left them, tail stiff, body tense, every muscle ready to react if needed. The dog had enforced control without a single strike. The room exhaled collectively. Daniel secured the knife. "You'll be held accountable," he said quietly, "and Kane, you did good." The intruder, chest heaving, backed into the corner, knowing they were trapped. The lesson was clear. Kane was more than a dog. He was a living barrier between chaos and safety. Tyler and Mason, still trembling, stared at the scene in silence. Fear and understanding mingled on their faces. Kane had shown them the power of instinct, courage, and control, things they had never considered before. Noah approached Kane slowly, reaching a hand to touch his fur. Kane glanced down at him, eyes softening slightly, tail giving a subtle wag, protection and reassurance in one glance. Daniels glanced around the office at the children, the teen, the bullies, the intruder. "It's over for now," he said, voice calm but firm. "But remember this day. Remember who watches and who protects. Some lessons can't be taught in words." The intruder was taken into custody, trembling but silent, too aware of Kane's power to resist. Tyler and Mason were silent as well, the weight of guilt heavy on their shoulders. Kane sat tall, alert, still scanning the room for any further threats, ready to act in an instant. And in that moment, Noah realized something he hadn't before. Kane didn't just protect the innocent. Kane revealed the truth, exposed the lies, and ensured that no one could hide from consequences. But even as calm returned, a lingering sense of unease remained. Kane's ears flicked toward the office window, nostrils flaring. Somewhere outside, beyond the walls, beyond the shadows, another danger was waiting. Noah swallowed hard. He glanced at Daniels. "It's not over, is it?" Daniels shook his head slowly. "No, kid, not by a long shot. Kane has sensed it, and we need to be ready." Kane gave a low, measured bark. Eyes sharp, muscles coiled. The sentinel was watching, waiting, predicting. And in that heartbeat, everyone understood the truth. The real storm was just beginning. Night had begun to fall over the school. Streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the empty playground, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was tense, heavy, like the calm before a hurricane. Kane paced slightly outside the office, nostrils flaring, ears twitching with every distant sound. Something or someone was out there, and his instincts told him it was no ordinary threat. Noah stayed close to Officer Daniels, clutching his sketchpad. He had drawn Kane again, capturing the dog's tense posture, the shadowed corners of the playground, and even the masked intruder from earlier. Every stroke of his pencil carried the memory of fear, awe, and the raw intensity of what had just happened. But even as he sketched, he sensed that the danger wasn't over. Daniels whispered to Kane, "Stay close. Watch everything. Predict their moves." Kane's tail flicked once, a subtle acknowledgement, but his eyes never left the tree line beyond the playground. The dog had already anticipated the next move. Then came a faint sound, the crunch of leaves underfoot, deliberate, slow, almost silent. Kane's ears shot forward. His growl was low, controlled, and vibrating through the asphalt. Noah felt it deep in his chest, instinctively crouching lower. The masked teen from earlier had been taken into custody, but this was someone else entirely. Tyler and Mason sat together, shivering, pale, and silent. Fear had replaced their arrogance. Guilt mingled with panic. Every instinct screamed at them to run, but Kane's presence was magnetic, commanding, and terrifying in a way that human authority could not match. A shadow detached itself from the line of trees. Kane moved instantly, low and deliberate, positioning himself between the figure and the school. The new intruder's identity was now clear: a tall, lean man, hooded and masked, hands stuffed into his pockets, posture predatory. The man's eyes glinted under the dim light of the street lamp, sharp and calculating. Daniels whispered, "This one isn't playing games." The man's voice was low, almost a growl. "I heard about the little dog, the one keeping order. I'm curious, how powerful can it really be?" Kane's hackles rose. He wasn't about to answer with words. Every muscle in his body tensed, every sense sharpened. He moved slightly forward, tail low but rigid, eyes locked on the intruder. The man smirked beneath his mask and took a step forward. I don't want trouble, I'm just curious. Daniels kept his hand near his radio, eyes never leaving Kane. You're about to learn a lesson, he muttered. Some things are stronger than you think. Kane growled, low and dangerous. He moved another step, closing the distance, eyes locked on the intruder with unwavering focus. The man's smirk faltered slightly. He had underestimated Kane's intelligence, his presence, and the silent authority he radiated. Suddenly the intruder lunged, not violently but fast, aiming to test Kane's reaction. Kane's body moved like lightning, sidestepping the man effortlessly, teeth bared, growl intensifying. The man stumbled slightly, eyes widening in shock. Kane's posture was clear. Any aggression, any threat will be met with precise force. Noah's breath caught. He had never seen anything like this. Kane wasn't just reacting, he was anticipating, predicting every move before it happened. Every instinct, every response was calculated to maintain control, protect the innocent, and neutralize danger without unnecessary harm. Daniels stepped forward, voice calm but firm. Back away, now. The man hesitated, eyes flicking between Daniels and Kane. He smirked, trying to maintain composure, but the tension was overwhelming. You think a police dog can stop me? Kane growled again, closer this time, a warning that vibrated through the air. The man's smirk wavered. He had tested Kane before, in his imagination, but nothing could have prepared him for the raw presence of a dog who read him like an open book. Tyler and Mason were silent witnesses, frozen by fear and awe. They had underestimated the consequences of their actions, and now they saw what true authority looked like, controlled, intelligent, and uncompromising. Then the intruder made a mistake. He reached into his pocket, perhaps for a weapon, perhaps for a distraction. Kane's muscles coiled like springs. In a single motion, the dog lunged, precise and controlled. He didn't attack viciously. He needed no violence. But his movement was enough to knock the intruder off balance, forcing him to the ground without causing permanent harm. The man scrambled, realizing he had underestimated Kane. Daniels moved in, radio in hand, ready to call backup, but Kane's presence alone was enough to hold the intruder in place. The man froze, hands raised slightly, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and respect. Noah felt his chest tighten. The raw power of Kane's presence, the dog's intelligence, discipline, and courage, was almost overwhelming. He had saved the school, the children, and now he was confronting a seasoned threat without breaking a sweat. Daniels crouched slightly, voice calm but authoritative. It's over. Drop whatever you're planning. You're not leaving here. Kane has you. The intruder swallowed hard, glancing at the dog. Kane's eyes didn't leave him for a second. Every instinct screamed danger. Every movement was precise. The intruder knew he had been outmatched. Slowly, deliberately, he backed away, hands raised, acknowledging Kane's authority. Tyler and Mason exchanged glances, understanding finally sinking in. Fear had replaced arrogance. Shame had replaced bravado. Kane's silent judgment had shifted the balance of power completely. But Kane wasn't done. His eyes flicked toward the tree line again, sensing movement, scanning for any additional threats. Daniels followed his gaze. Something else lingered, something subtle, patient, waiting for the moment to strike. Noah swallowed hard. The tension was far from over. Kane had neutralized the immediate danger, but the larger storm, the patterns of cruelty, the threats, the lurking dangers were still out there. Daniels whispered, "He's telling us there's more coming. Kane's not worried about today, he's worried about tomorrow." The intruder, now subdued, was taken into custody by arriving backup. Kane remained alert, scanning, muscles coiled, every sense sharp. Tyler and Mason sat quietly, their lesson carved deep into their minds. Even the teen with the recorder looked shaken, realizing the true magnitude of Kane's power. Noah approached Kane, hand trembling slightly as he reached out. Kane's eyes softened, tail flicking, acknowledging the courage and trust in the boy. But even as he allowed the moment of reassurance, his gaze returned to the tree line, unyielding, vigilant. And in that moment, everyone understood. Cain wasn't just a protector. He was a sentinel. He didn't just react. He predicted, judged, and enforced consequences. The night air hung heavy with tension. The intruder neutralized, Tyler and Mason humbled, the teen recording evidence and the children safe. But Cain's instincts had detected more. Somewhere beyond the shadows, a new danger waited. Cain could feel it, and when it moved, he would be ready. Noah realized with a chill that Cain's story, this battle for justice, for protection, for order, was far from over. Because Cain wasn't just a dog. Cain was inevitable. The night deepened over the school grounds, shadows stretching long and dark, twisting like fingers across the empty playground. Cain's ears twitched, muscles coiled like springs, eyes scanning every edge of the lot. The intruder from earlier had been taken away, but Cain's instincts were relentless. Something lingered, silent, patient, waiting for the right moment. Noah stayed close to Daniels, gripping his sketchpad as if it could anchor him to reality. He had never been this close to danger before, never felt fear and awe so intensely at the same time. Tyler and Mason huddled together on the curb, pale, silent, understanding in their bones that Cain's judgment had reshaped their world. The faint rustle from the tree line returned, softer than the intruder's earlier steps but deliberate, calculated. Cain's body tensed further. Every instinct screamed this was different, smarter, faster, more dangerous. Daniels whispered, "Stay behind him, don't move, let Cain do his job." Noah nodded, heart pounding. Cain was more than a protector, he was a strategist, a sentinel who anticipated threats before they even revealed themselves. And now the true test was coming. Suddenly a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man, hooded, carrying a small metal case in his hands. His movement was almost silent, but Cain's nose had already detected him, his muscles ready to explode. The air crackled with tension. The figure stopped at the edge of the playground, eyes glinting beneath his hood. Cain growled, low and controlled, a warning that vibrated through the night. The man smirked. "I see you've got a friend," he said softly, voice carrying easily across the lot. "But is it enough?" The figure opened the metal case. Inside, glinting under the dim streetlight, were multiple knives and other sharp implements, tools of intimidation, weapons meant to terrorize. Cain's eyes narrowed. He didn't flinch. He didn't move aggressively yet. He was reading, calculating. Daniels took a cautious step forward. "Drop it. Now, you're not walking out of here with that," he commanded. The man laughed softly. "You think a human and a dog can stop me?" Cain didn't respond with words. He responded with precision. In a blur of motion, he sprinted forward, low to the ground, eyes locked on the man. The intruder stumbled backward, surprised by the sheer speed and control Cain displayed. But Cain didn't attack blindly. He knocked the case sideways with his shoulder, sending knives clattering harmlessly across the asphalt. The man recovered quickly, reaching for one of the knives. Cain was faster. He lunged, placing himself between the intruder and Daniels. Teeth bared slightly, growl escalating, tail stiff, muscles coiled. Cain's presence alone forced the man to hesitate, giving Daniels the split second he needed to radio for backup. Tyler and Mason were frozen, realizing fully that Cain was not just a dog. He was judgment. He was instinct incarnate. He was the line between life and chaos. The intruder lunged again, more aggressively this time. Cain anticipated, sidestepping, redirecting the attack without making a single misstep. The man's momentum carried him forward and Cain leapt alongside him, cutting off any escape. The air was tense, sharp, electric, impossible to breathe easily. Noah watched, wide-eyed. Cain was magnificent, a blur of controlled power, intelligence, and precision. He wasn't just protecting the children. He was neutralizing the threat with surgical accuracy, teaching a lesson the way only a perfect combination of instinct and training could. Suddenly, the intruder stumbled over one of the scattered knives, arms flailing. Kane seized the moment, pinning the man down with a precise maneuver that was non-lethal but unbreakable. The intruder's struggles became frantic as Kane's weight and presence restrained him completely. Backup arrived minutes later, officers surrounding the area, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The intruder, breathing hard and wide-eyed with fear, realized he had underestimated Kane. Every officer paused, taking in the sight of the dog, muscles taut, eyes unwavering, growl resonating through the lot. Kane didn't attack them, he simply enforced control. Daniels stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "You're done, it's over. Hands where I can see them." The intruder froze, glancing at Kane. Fear, respect, and awe were clear on his face. He dropped the knives completely and raised his hands. Kane's stance softened slightly, still alert but no longer aggressive. The immediate threat had been neutralized. Tyler and Mason sat on the curb, pale and trembling. Tyler whispered, voice shaking, He's not just a dog." Mason nodded. He's unstoppable." The teen with the recorder approached cautiously, still holding the evidence he had collected earlier. I didn't know it would get this intense," he admitted. "I just wanted to protect the kids." Kane's gaze softened toward the teen, tail giving a slight wag. Noah felt the dog's approval, understanding that courage, human or animal, was recognized and honored. Daniels finally exhaled, lowering his shoulders. "Kane, you've outdone yourself." Kane's eyes flicked toward the tree line one last time, ensuring no hidden threats remained. Then, as if acknowledging the lesson had been fully taught, he relaxed slightly, sitting tall and regal. Tyler and Mason were escorted by their parents and Daniels, both boys silent, broken by fear, guilt, and awe. Kane's eyes followed them until they disappeared into the distance. He had enforced justice, protected the innocent, and ensured accountability, all without a single human life being harmed. Noah knelt beside Kane, hand brushing his fur gently. You saved all of us," he whispered, voice filled with awe and gratitude. Kane's tail flicked, eyes softening for just a moment, as if acknowledging the boy's understanding. But even as the adrenaline faded, a lingering sense of awe remained. Kane had done more than protect the school. He had shown every witness the true power of instinct, courage, and discipline. He had turned fear into respect, chaos into order, and in doing so, left an indelible mark on every mind present. Daniels crouched next to Noah, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Remember this, kid. Kane doesn't just fight, he teaches, he protects, and he shows us what real courage looks like." Noah nodded, understanding fully. Kane had saved more than lives that night. He had reshaped hearts, minds, and the way people saw justice. As the backup officers escorted the intruder away, the night finally settled into calm. The playground, once a site of fear and chaos, now felt reclaimed. But Kane remained vigilant, sitting tall, eyes scanning, ears twitching. The sentinel never truly rested. Noah glanced at Kane one last time, feeling a surge of admiration, gratitude, and awe. I hope everyone remembers tonight," he whispered. Kane's eyes met his, softening slightly, almost as if to say, "They will, and I'll make sure of it." The night was quiet now, but the story of Kane, the dog who enforced justice, revealed truth, and protected the innocent, would echo forever. And somewhere deep inside, Noah knew this was just one night. Kane's watch would never end. The dog had seen everything. He had judged. He had protected. And in the quiet glow of the streetlights, Kane remained a living, breathing guardian, a sentinel of justice no one would ever forget.